Welcome back to the Gaming Tailgate Podcast. Joined by a guy who has a better chance of being in CFB 27 than Brendan Sorsby. It's Tommy. Tommy, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. How about you?
Good. Life kind of got in the way. We've been gone a little bit, but with 27 seemingly on the doorstep, I'm pretty excited to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's EA's kind of been, quiet, so I guess therefore we've been quiet to an extent. But yeah, it's
Unrelated
one of
quiet.
those things that what's that?
Unrelated quiet. We don't want people to think
E
we're
yeah, exactly. Not one to one, but at the same time,
right.
you kind of put things on the back
Mm,
burner if they're not forefront of mind. So.
yep. Before we go into 27, whenever that news starts to come out, which we think will be in the next few weeks, within the next month for sure, we got to get something. Let's put a bow on College Football 26. We asked the community on X at Gaming Tailgate with 27 on the horizon. We want their final thoughts on the title, and we'll get to that. The questions we asked: what was great? What needed work? What final grade or score would you give the game? And lastly, how will you remember College Football 26? Tommy, this is all impromptu. I have not given you a script. You have not provided me with a script. I'm going to let you go first. Questions apply to you. When it comes time to write the eulogy for 26, what will you say?
So what was great at times, gameplay was really great.
Hmm.
There's still some things that need a lot of work on gameplay specifically, but overall, I think at least day to day, it's fun.
Hmm.
You need the right sliders. You need to kind of find what works for you, but at the same time, I've had some fun with it. That said, that there's sometimes where it's, inside zone after inside zone starts to kind of get tired and people rely on that too much. So it's that's not pointed at any one
Hmm.
person. It's just more that it's there's things that need to get fixed, I guess, at the end of the day. So again, as far as great, I guess gameplay is where I would start. What needed work? 100% first thing that needs a lot of attention is the coaching carousel. If you're in an online dynasty, or even if you're in a solo dynasty for that matter, the job offers just aren't there. You can't really understand why one offer came versus another and that kind of thing. So that's something that really needs a lot of attention and
Hmm.
something that the community needs to have a way to understand better what it offers. So yeah. As far as score, it's tough. I think at launch I would have given it a higher score, but where we are today, not that the game's gotten worse, it's just that, kind of you settle in and you see
Hmm.
what truly is behind the curtain. I think
Right.
today I'd probably get it like a 75. That's not bad, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, I think part of that is because this is what 25 really should have been.
I've heard that a
Um, you know,
lot in our
yeah,
community.
26 is more kind of a quality of life update for 25. Yeah, there's some new features, of course, and then there's some improvements, but at the same time, it didn't just take some big leap forward that says, this is a totally different game than we
Hmm.
were last year. Which again, you can't really expect 27 to be that like that. We are used to the development cycle, small changes here. Some of them make a big impact, some of them
Hmm.
don't. So, yeah, at the end of the day, how I'll remember 26 is basically 25.5.
Hmm.
Um, Again, it's what should have launched on the first after all the time that they took and the delay and everything like that. It really should have been closer to what we got this year.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment. That kind of matches a lot with what the community has said as well. You're not alone. You're not the first person I've heard basically say or even type out those same thoughts. I'll try to go different from you where I can. I don't want to be verbatim or seem like a parrot here. What was great, I think at times the gameplay, also at times very much we needed work, the gameplay. The physics engine, that was one of the things in pre-release they said, oh, once you play this in 26, you cannot go back to 25. Generally, I think it was an improvement, but also still needs a lot of work. It truly doesn't understand physics and momentum and direction, especially relates to tackling. I was going back through and reading some of the things they had said they added with it. And they mentioned the hit stick was improved. It's not the way I view it when I play it. The hit stick still needs a lot of work. It doesn't properly reflect what we expect that hit stick to be historically in the game. To EA's credit, and everybody's going to have a different answer on this. I felt like reading after 25 came out on X and on Reddit, the 30,000 foot view from the community was we want this game to be more challenging, especially in Dynasty. And I think EA did that. There's arguments how well they did it, but between the dynamic deal breakers and the portal just being too wide open, created more chaos. So they did that. But the setting they went with by default actually was a detriment to the game because then the computer rosters got decimated and they weren't competitive for a lot of schools later on unless you played on beefed up Heisman sliders to, then the average teams could play above their heads a little bit.
But
Go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, just to jump in to that point, looking at our dynasty, we're in year seven. There are a few teams that are looking at CPU teams. There are a few teams that are above 90, but it's your Alabamas, your Ohio States, and your
Mm-hmm.
Georgias. There are very few teams that are in 80, even just as few that are in 70, and then so many that are in like 60 overall, 50 overall for those small schools, and even like the medium-sized schools, they're in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
It's again, we even toned down our portal settings, but
We have
those
to.
small schools just ha cannot compete even with the lower portal settings we have.
Mm.
So yeah, long story short, that to me, that's again something that's a huge eyesore.
What needed work on my list as I have in front of me here, I put still a lot of bugs, still a lot of quality of life issues they didn't get to, some from 25 on both those fronts, a lot of missing and incorrect details. Community interaction was awful. One such example, if you go to the product website right now, try to go look back when they gave the last patch or title update details. You have to go through several pages of Ultimate Team updates to see the last time they actually interacted with the community and said what they did differently, what they added in a patch. The game has done a horrible job, and lots of titles fall under that same header. But this show is devoted to college football, so I'm only going to rip on EA here. I can't rip on other games or studios. It's nice when studios try to do community projects, interactive things, things to grow the community. EA's best thing they did to grow the community this year was we had to work together to find out what was in the patches. You go to Reddit or X, and then everybody says, "Well, I think this is new," or "I think they changed this." That's not the way it should be. That should not be your
No.
community building project. I don't think that was by design. That was by accident that those things happen. Road to Glory. I'm not a huge Road to Glory guy, but I recognize that's the worst mode in the game, and that's saying something. Dynasty needs more immersion. And granted, we're not going to do a 27 wish list tonight. Well, maybe we'll do it on a different show. And I find to myself, if I had to give a score, I recognize the game I could probably give it a 7 out of 10. For me personally, probably about a 6, just because it depends how much bugs you run into. This game does not shock me when people on X or Reddit say it's their favorite sports game, favorite game, college football game ever. I can't push back. But when I see someone say, wow, this game is awful, this game is poor, I also can't push back because I can very much see why. If you run into those issues or those issues rub you the wrong way, I can see why you don't like it. And my last point on this, and I don't know if I'm the only one on this, I enjoyed 25 more, but I recognize 26 is the better game. Now, I don't know if I'd say top to bottom, but generally speaking, 26 better. I think with of the specialness of 25, or there's just enough bugs and grading issues in 26 that keep coming through that I find myself even I'm 300 to 400 hours into it, so I'm not going to say it's a bad game. Just didn't hit like 25 did in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, part of that was because of the long,
Hmm.
long 11-year delay or whatever you
Hmm.
want to call it,
Layoff,
missing from,
hiatus.
yeah, hiatus, missing from our life, whatever you want to say. But yeah, a part of that was the 11 years. But even still in, May, June timeframe last year, I was still interested in 25.
Same
Right
here.
now,
Even ramped
I'm
up a
s-
little bit.
I'm still playing it, but at the same time, I'm debating on whether or not I play the next season.
Mm,
We've still got probably time for another 2 seasons, but I don't know that I'll be in there or not. It's hard to decide. So,
mm. You
and
don't want to
there's
get
there's
burned
lots of
out.
reasons for, as I said, there's lots of reasons for that, but at the same time, the game itself has a huge part of that.
Mm. Let's go with what the community said about the game. A lot of great replies here, and some of these are very much wish list items, which, to be fair, I don't want to get into this time. We're wrapping up 26. 27 will be its own beast at its own point in time. So we'll go through some of these. Chat GP Dawson says Dynasty job offers have to improve. That's what you said, Tommy. And what's grating is that was the same feedback after 25. That really did not change or get improved all that much, or at least enough to eradicate that concern or complaint or issue from the community. What's really grating is that they have this new format of how they do hires still, from 25 and 26, where only one user at a time and so on. When the community consensus was that 14 had it right. And I understand
Yeah.
EA has said, oh, this is so much better because you don't have to wait for the users. We want to wait on other users. We want more users in there.
Yeah.
That's a poor excuse, and maybe it'll be fixed in 27. Just still grinds my gears that they. I understand they're probably trying to get a face on it, but it's like that's not the argument. That's not a good argument.
Completely agree. Yeah. Or I mean, you could still probably do it. You just have a list of job offers that are ahead of you in the schedule,
Mm-hmm.
and you put interest in job offers that either are open or may come open. And then based upon that, the team decides who their best candidate is for who's interested. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even if there's a user ahead of you, you can still say, "Hey, I'm interested in his job if he leaves,"
Mm-hmm.
or something like that.
And if
Uh,
they're concerned about it taking too long, then you give an option for the commissioner to make the decision for them. It's
Yeah,
pretty
and which
simple.
yeah, 14 had that too.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to force a decision. Well, no, I'm sorry. I think the commissioner could only force them to stay at their current school or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Something. I remember there being some oddity there, but yeah, the only enhancement they did for this year was the ability to that the same user isn't going to get four job offers or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
another user get none. At least they kind of spread that out a little bit. So, but still, that's at the end of the day, they've really got to get a big improvement. And like you said, go back to the 14 version. I think everybody would be happy with that.
That's one of the major things you see out there. Rocco says, I enjoyed it, but I think that's just because it's a college football game. At this point, I feel it was a very lazy attempt after what they did with 25. It felt like a giant patch instead of a refinement. They really need to step it up with 27. I'm already on the edge of not buying it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somebody who's bought it every year, but I'm definitely a lot closer than I ever have been of not buying it.
Mm,
Honestly, I'll probably end up still buying it, but at the same time, if it's another year like this year, then probably 28 I don't buy. Again, at some point they lose all the goodwill that they had with 25,
they're
and
trying.
yeah, they're doing their best to do that.
Yeah, on many
Trying
fronts.
to accelerate that. But the
Mm.
fact that they didn't communicate at all, like it's been complete radio silence.
They take the community for granted. And I'm
Yeah,
not
for
trying to seem
sure.
bitter, but I'm making up for lost time with hot takes here. They take the
Yeah,
community
okay.
for granted, just like a lot of big companies. And I hate to throw a broad net out, but I'm going to do it. Take the take the customer for granted. And this is a game that, again, in the top 10, brings in a ton of money through Ultimate Team. I think they feel like people are going to buy it. We're going to sell copies. We're not going to deal with those people. Not
But
maybe
at
it's
the
not fair,
same,
but that's how I feel sitting on this side of it.
yeah, but at the same time, you know, the old days of or NCAA, there were some really impressive years there
Hmm.
that there was a lot of foot traffic and everyone had to have the game, and kind of
Hmm.
25 brought that back.
Hmm.
But at the same time, there's way too many other competing games, whether it's sports
Hmm.
games or otherwise, that, your attention is going to get split. And so
Hmm.
it's a matter of, does EA want to keep our attention or not?
Well, this year they have UFC coming out in June. EA, I'm not sure what the crossover is on that fan base, but then you also have the looming specter of GTA coming out in later in the year. Will that affect college purchases? Will it affect Madden purchases? None of the above, all the above. It's going to be an interesting year, I think. Eric
Yeah,
of
yeah, absolutely.
Thornburg gives it a B plus. He says real good and made some decent advancements, but still too many things that frankly should be day one stuff that isn't properly functional. Whether in Dynasty, for instance, again a 25 complaint we're still talking about heading into 27. Pass protection and is still way too buggy. Monts's equipment needs a major overhaul, and that's something when we talk 27, we'll talk about the equipment stuff. Brandon says for Dynasty, which is what I play, the coaching carousel has to be better. Also need to eliminate four-star running backs and wide receivers with 82 speed. What was up with that? Again, I've noticed that in recruiting as well. Like you see this four-star you're interested in, you do the scouting, you see he's low 80 speed. Sorry, but I'm not going after you.
Yeah, yeah. I will say I've been very lucky, I guess I would say,
Mm.
of getting those, high 80s running backs, and I've got two
Oh, I
right now
know.
that were like that were high 80s, low 90s, and they're
Mhm.
both 99 speed now. And this was with automatic progression. So, again, the players can get there, but you also have to invest time into them. You're
Mhm.
not gonna they're both elite, so I will say that. But they can get there if you've got the right player.
Batman 956 says Dynasty needs a bit of a rev up, not a revamp. It'll be cool to add AD to the list of playable characters, poaching G5 coaches to power fours. The pass protection needs to be improved while needing to decrease the run blocking. You have that thing at 0 in the sliders and you're still going 100. That's a big gameplay thing. People want those sliders to work and they want more sliders. Gameplay is tough because you could have 100 people in a room and they're all going to give you different answers on what needs to be fixed or addressed with gameplay or what they like. That's where working sliders that are explained and more options could alleviate what everybody wants, which is always so different.
Yeah.
Dustin says the way they abandoned this game, I sure hope 27 is a home run. The lack of bug fixes and tuning was frustrating. There also needs to be a lot of time tuning that I think the community will most likely be disappointed in the lack thereof in 27, but I hope I'm wrong. James Coolhub says the same thing we talked about. Only complains the coaching carousel. You should be getting plenty of offers if successful, especially at a lower tier school. You'd like to see some stuff from Madden brought in, like the interview process. Coach D gives it a C minus. He says it was an absolutely horrendous launch, one of EA's worst ever. Untargeting was a huge W. That's something I think only the hardcore fans probably used to appreciate it. A lot of bad elsewhere. Way, way too many issues that have been present for too long. Carousel, outdated man coverage, too many to list. Your typical one step forward, two steps back from EA.
What's
Make
the untargeting? What
that
I
that
guess.
is that was added to the slide protection stuff. You could choose it to
Oh, okay.
untarget somebody. I'd never used it a lot. It's one of those that if you know what you're doing and do it right, it could really help you. But if you made the wrong decision, it could really backfire. So I
Yeah,
stayed
yeah.
away from it, but I know people who, like Coach Dedman here, if you're good with it and understand it, it could be another weapon offensively, as if the offense needed another weapon. But they did have that.
I imagine that's mostly effective in like user games where you have somebody that is manually bringing a guy up, but you also know that they're being controlled by the user. Um, that kind of thing. I think that's where it mostly comes into effect.
I
But
believe so, and I think if you're going away from that person, for example, I think
right,
that's how
right.
some people have described it. Megatron 88 says recruiting needs a massive overhaul. I think we'll get tweaks. I don't want to get into 27 predictions, but I would not expect an overhaul. I would expect changes and refinements and maybe a few additions.
Yeah,
Roy Capel, aka Casual Otaku Stooge, says that despite some flaws, it is one of the best college football games I've played in a while. Road to Glory mode is incredible. That's interesting because I most people I hear say they don't like it, but I'm glad he does. It'll be great to play a full season of high school football with a real high school program in every state. Final grade A minus on to 27. Lloyd said good game. Disappointed in the South Carolina details. Tyler Vickery says, honestly, I'm going to pay the $100. Maybe I'm the problem. I've enjoyed both 25 and 26 and thrilled it's back. It can be better in a lot of areas, but better than not having it at all. Also, you got to get the new interview because of the roster. That's a good point. That's one thing. It's another community thing we don't have in the past. We had that sharing of rosters to build a community, do a community project or just interaction, and now we're at EA's mercy throughout the year. Jay says it got stale and they should run an online dynasty, so every game would matter, but after a while, every game feels the same. I don't disagree with that one bit. Immersion
100%.
on all fronts needs to be bumped up in 27. Dope, it's the one, says definitely a step in the right direction, but Dynasty needs a big time improvement. I'll give it a solid 8. Good game, but to be honest, I don't play it anymore. Star Screamer War Eagle says 6 out of 10. CJ says Dynasty needs a lot of work. It's so dull and bare bones for a mode that's supposed to track progress for 30 years. It's just a bunch of text and menus. Could be infinitely better with dynamic storylines, recruits reacting to that, etc. I've had that same thought over the last few months. Concern that I understand 14. They said the team before 25. 14 was the base. They wanted to reach 14. I'm worried that 14 is the mold that they're never going to get out of in some areas, especially like
Yeah.
Dynasty, the menus. I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I do wonder, is there something you could do to make more intuitive, to surface more storylines, to there's just things in Dynasty you want to get to that are buried, which I think don't help it either. I don't know the answer, but I definitely agree with him. There's just a lot of text and menus.
Honestly, I think the way to get there is through AI. And by that, I'm talking about AI generating stories for you. And it could generate stories even if you're an online dynasty and you're on the same week for several days. Why not have different stories every time you come into the menu? Instead of
Hmm.
those four that are canned
And
and
they're
no,
awful.
and they're awful. Yeah. Have the AI do interpretation of what's happened in the past week to say, this
Hmm.
is what's going on and this is how it impacts your team and that kind of thing. Um, you know, Honestly, interpretive AI could do a lot with this game. And also hopefully it is or can help them in terms of how to improve just the user experience. Like,
Hmm.
where are things failing, where are things succeeding, and just provide them some of that feedback.
I would say even a ticker on that Dynasty menu would be so much better, but they can't get the ticker right in game. So I'm not real
Yeah.
confident they can get it working Dynasty to surface storylines.
Yeah.
Deadly,
And as Stanford, why am I interested in a game between Charlotte and Marshall?
you're not.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's giving me updates during the middle of the game and breaking in a couple of times during the game. If one of them was ranked, okay, maybe. But at the same time, I would much rather hear about other teams in my conference or other users or something like that. That's the thing is that an online dynasty with multiple users should have a focus around multiple users.
Hmm.
Don't, don't, you know, don't hide them in with the rest of the country. I care about the rest of the users. Obviously, I care about, ahead of me in the polls, whether it's a user or a CPU. But at the end of the day, I'm mostly interested in what the other users are doing.
And just the visual of that ticker is awful. Your eyes are not
Yeah.
drawn to it. Doesn't work. Stats don't show, or sometimes they have. And it's been that way in
Yeah.
25 and 26. This isn't just something that happened this year. Deadly Impulse Game says 25, 26 says Tommy. These games are lacking in so many areas. Needs work. I give it a 5.5. Immersion, recruiting, Dynasty Road to Glory. They have lost another customer. Cubster fan Dynasty needs some work and a lot of good ideas there. Big John says the week to week is kind of grindy. Point up in recruiting, play your game. Point up recruits, play a game. Points game. Overall solid. I say a B minus. He's not wrong. It gets old very quick. And same thing applies to Road to Glory as well. The little I've played it, 25, 26, just very repetitive. I don't know how you get out of that exactly. I mean, we have these 30,000 foot ideas. I don't know how they work in reality. He's not wrong though.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, once you get middle of the season and if you've already got a full roster and everything like that, you get middle of the season, you've signed 10 to 12 recruits, but you want to keep space open for the portal guys. I'm done recruiting halfway through the season.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm still putting points in guys, but either they're a given that I'll sign them or they're just extra. And if I sign them, great. If I don't, that's fine too.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's boring once you get to that point and there's no reason in going and recruiting some 3-star to find a gem when, they somewhat exist, but they almost kind of don't.
And so it's just a formula basically that once you get to the top five, then you change your approach to the hard sell, etc. There's no variety. I know a lot of the community feedback has been get some deep commitments, so at least you still got to invest in your verbal commits, which I think would be a great addition as well. Just it's got to be they got to put a little spice into it this year. Bob Martin says
Absolutely.
they owe us an all-time classic. That's all I'm going to say. 25 was decent. 26 was a step back. Unfortunately, says that's his name. I'm not saying about his comment. Gets boring after a while. Needs more customization. In 2K, you can edit your downloaded teams on the game. Think that would be fire. Also, the defensive and offensive AI logic are terrible. Wide receivers do not block past 10 yards. And I know I've mentioned this in the past, but for those who are new or have not listened, they will block down 10 past 10 yards, but there's some weird, and I probably can't explain this worth a hoot on a video here. To me, it seems like there's a tunnel they do it. If you're the ball carrier, and there's somebody up here, if you run towards them in this tunnel, there's a good chance they'll block. But they don't seem to understand, like, you run to open space that they can block over here. I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain it better than that. Like, you have to be in a tunnel with them. If they're not smart enough to, okay, if I block here and seal off, the running back's going to get to the end zone. They just, it's very, there's something broke with the blocking. I don't know, I'm not going to say logic, but how they attack it. And I think that's where he's seeing that Generally, if you try to get to the open space, you don't see downfield blocking. But if you try to get up on your blocker, then you do. It's very weird. And I hope that makes
Well, and
sense to
there's
anybody listening or watching.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely makes sense. The other thing that he may be referring to is that there was a bug that was worse, and it's still there today. But it used to be that you would see receivers just walking around downfield,
Yes.
and if that's what he's talking
Yeah.
about, that's obviously a bug. It's
Hmm.
better, but it still happens. So
I agree. It does happen, but to trigger it, you have to be the right. It's weird. It's very weird.
yeah, yeah,
And he just has an emoji for his name. It was good, but there are inexplicable, massive deficiencies. It's also frustrating how the game seems to get worse with every update. That's always the knock or statement on EA games is that you never know what the future updates are going to break, or bring back issues they bring back that they fixed in a previous patch. We've seen as well over the last 2 years.
yeah.
TJR says the game is not great and always will be. There is no hope. Uh, Little Scooby says everything. It was obviously unfinished. And the last one, Habibi. Uh, I, these guys are funnier than I could ever hope to be. Sim and RGG is not great. And CPU versus CPU play feels so scripted. It's crazy. And I know the scripted stuff gets thrown around, and I don't think that's quite right, but I completely understand the point. And we've talked about this on a previous show. I think there are very much certain situations that the game provides boost, and we've talked about that on previous shows. I think that's where people say they feel there's scripted stuff, and I totally agree. And some of the things that computer can do, especially on those higher difficulties that you can't do, or just frankly the things they do that they shouldn't be able to. I get why people say the game feels scripted or cheesy at times.
Yeah, I think as well, part of it is the abilities in some cases,
Hmm.
especially certain abilities are way overblown, to the point that if you just have that ability and nothing else, you're still gonna, be an elite running back, for example, or something.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's some things that just break the game because the tuning just is not there. Whereas if you have an elite blocker that has, platinum level abilities, they're not going to be an elite blocker. They're still going to give up sacks. They're still going to miss blocks, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
It's definitely by certain positions, it's overblown.
With that, we're going to wrap up our returning Gaming Tailgate podcast. Let us know what were your final thoughts on College Bowl 26. We want to know what you liked, did not like, what your final grade or score was on the game, and how you will you remember the game. The one thing I'll add, depending how 27 is, I think that'll be the final verdict on 26. If 27 is a massive jump up in a great game, I think 26 gets kind of forgotten. 25, the special return year. 26 will be, well, that's what 25 should have been. And then 27, hopefully, a great game that we'll be really excited to play all year long. So for Tommy and JB, who's out on vacation, I'm CDJ. Thank you for watching and listening to this edition of the Gaming Tailgate Podcast.